if you enter some sort of a test, right, then your focus gets activated. You command your subconscious to fully engage in the activity at hand and use your maximum IQ. But once the test is over, you go back to only using 10 to 20% of your mental capacity and spend the rest of your day like that. You're not even aware of this. It just happens automatically. Now listen to this carefully. To be an insanely successful person in everything you do, you need to use your brain at near maximum capacity all the time. Not once in a while at high RPMs like I gave in the example. No. You need a brain that outputs its maximum power all the time, not just once a day for 5 minutes or once a week for 20 minutes or once a month for 1 hour. Now, I'm going to teach you how, but I want to go in a logical sequence. Now, in the past, there was a good reason for your brain to evolve to work this way. Your brain consumes the highest energy, highest calories in your body. It weighs about 1.4 kilos, right? Kilograms, and it's what equals to about 2% of your total body weight, probably. But here, where it's interesting, it demands 20% of your resting metabolic rate. That's huge. That's a huge amount of energy consumption. And that's just to keep things in order, right? So in the past, like millions of years ago, like from 3.2 million years ago, from the time of infamous Lucy, from that time until only about 10,000 years ago, which is when we transitioned from hunter-gatherers to farming, the food supply was limited. All these millions of years, right? And as a result, your brain learned to adapt and cut down on energy usage until it was absolutely needed. So now, when you push the brain a bit too much, unless you're trained and used it, it gives you temporary mental exhaustion or mental fatigue. You leave an important exam or test and you feel this, right? The mental exhaustion, like after meetings, you feel that sometimes. It's the evolution speaking. It's telling you, hey, you're using it a bit too much. I don't like it. Take it easy. It's just not used to it. It doesn't like it. It didn't evolve to work that way. But we live in different times now, don't we? I mean, we have no shortage of food supply. Not anymore. We can buy calories now. Therefore, we need to push and train our brains to start using 100% of its capacity all the time. What is limiting me? It's not glucose or ketones. Why am I saying this? I'm saying this so you understand that you already have the same hardware used by Einstein and Isaac Newton. You're as genius as they are. You're just limited by the software, not the hardware. You all have the same hardware. But I'm going to talk about the how part very soon. But before I do it, I want to give a few more examples, okay? We're like, a moth, I'll put a thing. We're like a moth. A moth guides itself by light sources. And in the past, the only light sources at night were the moon, the planets and the stars. And their guidance strategy was that if you can keep those light sources at constant angle, right, you'd be able to go in a straight line. And because those light sources like stars are so far away, you'd be able to go straight. But now things changed. When small local sources of light came to being, like candles or light bulbs, then the strategy of keeping light at a certain angle resulted in them circling around the candle and then possibly spiraling into their death. That's why you see so many insects like a moth and spiraling around your light bulb in your garden at night. That's the reason. That's how they are guiding themselves. So the evolutionary strategy they adopted that made them survive, that are no longer making them survive. This, not evolving and adapting fast enough, is the reason so many species go extinct. You don't have to look far away for animals going extinct. You don't like leopards or Darwin's fox from Chile or, etc. It's happening all around you. None of us, including Homo sapiens, are fast enough to evolve. The only reason we survive and thrive and they go extinct is because as species, we're not faced with a challenge that is bigger than our capabilities to solve them. There isn't a smarter being than us at the moment, right? And the only challenge we're up for is the one that comes from other Homo sapiens. That's why we never needed to challenge our mental capacity that much, because we already won with what we had. Why consume more calories? Why put more effort unless we really need to? We already won. Now, if you're wondering why I'm sharing this with you, just be patient. I'm going to tie everything together beautifully. Everything will make sense soon. So the point is, your peak IQ means nothing. In terms of hardware, you are as smart as Isaac Newton or Einstein or Nikola Tesla. You have the same hardware. The difference is in the software. They learned to adapt and exude incredible amount of brain power throughout their work, throughout their days. Think of Isaac Newton. Do you think he'd be able to develop Principia if he only had 10-minute IQ peaks a day? Or Einstein? I mean, he released like 4 major publications in 1905 that changed the future of humanity, right? I mean, his first publication taught us how to measure the size of molecules in liquid. The second taught us how to determine their movement, and the third publication was like how light comes in packets called photons. And the fourth one was obviously the special relativity. All in 1 year. Do you think he achieved everything in 5-minute peaks? The key takeaway is keep that light turned on at 80 watts throughout the day, and you never need 100 watts once a week. You'll be smarter than all the geniuses. Got it? Dennis, okay, fine. I get it. Yeah, how do you do it then? I'm sold, I get it. Evolution, we need to adapt, keep the light on at 80 watts. How do you do it? Now let's move on to the second part. Second part of the second part. You don't need a secret pill. You don't need surgery. You don't need anything that you don't already have. You already have the hardware for it. We talked about it. You just need to update the software a bit. You need to command it. Command it? Yeah, right, Dennis. I don't think it'll just listen to me. It will. It will. If you know the secret ingredient, right, the secret sauce, it will have to listen to you. It cannot reject you. And the secret ingredient is questions. What? Questions? Yep, questions. Currency to buy everything. Currency to buy my boat, my house, my car, my career. Whatever you desire in life is question marks. Currency to lead a very successful life is all question marks. That's all you need. That's all you need to get it started. Questions are commands you give to your brain for it to get to work and stop preserving energy. Critical thinking at its core is nothing but an ability to ask questions without even being aware of it, if I made sense at all there. It's the state of mind that your brain is constantly looking for an opportunity to ask questions. And you had this ability before. You needed this ability before badly. Do you know when? Can you think of when? When you were a child, growing up. Your brain needed to work a lot harder than it does now as your environment constantly changed, right? Your body changed, your mental capacity grew, your height, your weight, so many unknown inputs. So it needed to stay active a lot more frequently than it is now. So, okay, what do I do then? I'm not a kid anymore. Yes, you are not. Your first level of action is to put conscious effort to ask questions, like consciously, right? Just ask questions about so many things. Why did I do this report? You don't have to voice it out. Just think of it. Why did I go there? How do I change my career? How do I need to get that promotion? Initially, these questions won't come up naturally. You're gonna look funny to ask these questions. You're gonna feel funny. But after a week or a month, you'll notice something very strange. You'll notice that your brain now continues the effort without you consciously asking. You know what I mean? It starts asking questions subconsciously now. You won't need to sit down and ask questions anymore because your brain automated that activity. Those questions will start to pop out of nowhere. And that's how you win. It's questions. So you need to ask the right questions. But how do you know which questions are the right questions? How do you get to the right questions? By asking a lot of stupid questions, but within a scope. I know I'm a bit at a high level now, but just be patient because we'll get to the examples in a moment and how to ask questions and the whole thing. In life, you're almost always one smart question away from completely transforming your life for better. You're only one right question away from being super rich, wealthy, insanely peaceful and happy. Just one question. But you won't know what that question is until you start asking a whole bunch of nonsensical ones. Look at IKEA. One of the companies that truly mastered the art of strategy, right? The positioning, segmentation, and value chains and value curves. Do you think IKEA's founder, Ingvar, sat down with management consultants like me and ran competitive strategy analysis? Right? Not at all. No. He didn't have money to hire consultants at the time. He just asked a lot of questions. And eventually, he just got to the right question. So here's what's going to happen. Over time, as you repeat these steps, your brain automates this activity. It lets you do it without even thinking about it. Now, in your consciousness, you have space for about 3 things. You can do about 3 things at any given time. You can speak to a friend in person while texting to another friend while watching a movie at the same time. All of these things require conscious effort. But here's the interesting part. You can do almost infinite amount of things that your brain learned to automate earlier. Meaning, while you're doing all those 3 conscious things, you can also ride a bicycle. You can also eat and walk and drink. The point is, as long as you don't need tools such as your hands, your body parts, you can run almost infinite amount of background tasks. The tasks that are automated. That's your goal. Ask so many questions all the time that your brain learns to automate the task of asking questions. And if you can get there, when you get there, your brain will perform at very, very high power levels all the time. You'll perform similar to how Einstein did or how Isaac Newton did. Okay, Dennis. What does it have to do with strategic thinking? I'm confused. Everything. Strategic thinking is creating your positioning in life, at work, at home. It's answers. Answers are the outcomes of questions. Questions are not natural to us. It requires thinking. Thinking is uncomfortable. Using your brain is uncomfortable. We don't like thinking. Why don't we like it? Because it uses so much energy. What's wrong with it? Because that's how we evolved, right? So why do we evolve that way? Because the food supply was limited. Got it now. So how do we break it? We break it by automating the question asking process because we can only do one of 3 things, right? The questions need to pop up in our minds without putting conscious effort. And in order to get there, we need to first consciously ask questions. Teach the brain to automate it. This is the exact roadmap you need to follow. You'll know when that transition happens because you'll realize you're now getting so many questions popping up all of a sudden, right? Now, when that happens, you may choose to answer them or ignore them. But the important thing is having those questions coming to surface. So your brain did its job. It automated the question asking process. And the best part is it won't go away. You can still ride a bike even if you don't ride it for decades, right? Once it's automated, it's not going away. You'll get there. You'll see. Your brain will become a constant question asking machine. Now, why is that important? Here's an interesting thing for you. And listen to this carefully. Pre-internet, your ability to analyze your environment was limited by both your ability to ask questions and find answers. You couldn't get the answers you needed to move on to the next question. So not only you couldn't ask questions, but also you couldn't find the answers. It was just a negative feedback loop, right? Now you can find the answers, but still limited with questions. And what good is having an ability to find answers if you don't know the questions? That's what we're trying to solve, right? Now, I'll continue with some examples of how strategic thinking can apply to a career. But if you need to, I suggest you give another break, get some fresh air, and come back later when you're on top of your focus. Now, okay, let me give you some examples of strategic thinking at work. Not necessarily for top corporates, but even mom and pop shops, right? Or for your own small department. Here's an interesting story for you. One day, we were traveling around Southern Europe, and we were in a very, very popular tourist destination in a very crowded street. It's one of those areas where, you know, shop names were not even mentioned. Instead, their signboards say things like Italian t-shirt, you know, and then cell phone brands, you know, Nokia, BlackBerry, or whatever. It was many years ago. So I'm sure you've been to those places. Anyway, we just needed a lighter. So we entered one of those shops at probably around 4 p.m. with an intention to buy a simple lighter. That's it, just a lighter. And we left that place at 5 p.m. with bags full of stuff we didn't need. We bought spices, we bought shoes and sandals and bags and backpacks and necklace and computer cables. And a lot of them were like either extremely low quality or fake, as we came to understand in the evening. So the guy duped us. He mastered the art of human psychology. I was so mad at him, but I was also so impressed. You know, he almost hypnotized us. You know, he gave us subliminal suggestions and they worked. We were almost in a trance state and we didn't even buy a lighter. He was able to sell us all these fake and low quality goods. And now you may ask, how is this relevant to the topic? Well, the guy apparently asked a few very smart questions to himself, didn't he? Is branding important for my business? Right? No. Is customer retention important for me? No. You never see the same tourists twice. They come and go. Is quality important for me? No. Quality of the product will not be very obvious at the time of the purchase. It just needs to look good. Okay. Then what do I have to do? Screw the customer. That's it. As unethical as it is, he found a strategy that made him the most money by asking just a few questions. The guy didn't hire a management consultant like me, right? Just ask. It's similar like how IKEA's founder, we talked about this, Ingvar, also didn't, right? And when you come to think of it, all these strategy tools we have, the Porter's 5 forces, the past, blue ocean, value chains, value curves, they all serve one purpose. And that is the facilitation of question asking process, right? It keeps you within the scope. I mean, if you already have that natural ability to ask questions, you wouldn't even need any of these frameworks because these questions come out naturally, right? And this isn't only applicable to profitability or the companies. Every single aspect of your life it is applicable to. Sports, school, career, getting your promotion, everything. It applies to everything. Let me give you another example. If you watched my previous videos, you know that I'm a champion sailor. I mean, I don't make money from it. I'm a management consultant, but it's something I do since the age of 6. Now, let's apply a similar level of thinking to sailing, right? And what questions led me to become a very successful European champion sailor? So, to be the first, I need to cross the finish line first, right? Okay. Now let's ask some questions. Question 1. Do I need to be the fastest in all points of sailing? I mean, do I need to be the fastest in each leg, like upwind and reach, or downwind, right? Not really. Okay. Which point of sailing then makes the biggest difference? Well, when we go upwind, you know, like with angles towards the wind, we cannot surf. So the maximum speed for all of us is limited by hydrodynamics. Let's say it's 3 knots for optimist, which is what I raced when I was a kid. So, but when we go reach or downwind, we can surf the waves. And that makes us reach greater speeds up to 15 knots. So if I can train hard enough to just be the best sailor in reach and downwind, then I will make the biggest difference. This was a question I asked myself when I was 7 years old, and I figured that it was going to be my strategy. And in all my 30 years of sailing, I just stuck by this strategy. We start the race in upwind. Out of maybe 100 plus racers, I'm usually in top 10 or top 20, but never top 5. But then we turn to reach, I make up to top 5. And then when we go to downwind, I'm usually in top 3 or first. Now, this level of thinking is exactly what corporate strategy teaches you, doesn't it? We talked about this before. You don't have to be the best in everything you do. Remember the example? What's the best car company in the world? Now, okay, you can say, Dennis, I'm not managing a small business, nor am I a sailor or a sportsman. I'm just a mid-level employee. Fair enough. Let's cover more areas then. Let's say you are, what can it be? Let's say you're a sales manager, right? Your upwind, maybe your B2B sales. Your reach is your repeat customers, and your downwind is your joint venture partnerships, right? Now, sit down and draw the importance of each of these legs and figure out which ones you need to be good and which ones you need to be the best, right? And that's how you get that promotion. You want to have your MBA at Harvard Business School. Good, no problem. Your upwind leg is your GPA from your bachelor's degree. Your reach is your work experience, and your downwind leg is your references, right? In simple terms, this applies to any industry, profession, any person. It's very similar to the value curves we did earlier, right? Isn't it? Let's take it to extremes. You're a girl, you want to have a boyfriend, right? Okay. Your upwind is your looks. Your reach is your social status. Your downwind leg is your character. Make sense? Now, you don't have to have we're going to talk about limitations soon. So, let's talk about trade-offs and limitations. One of the reasons I was never the best in upwind was because I was very small compared to the others at that age. They were bigger than me. And in upwind, we hike. So physically, I wasn't as strong or as big as they were. And there was nothing I could do about it. Physically, they matured faster than I did. It's a limitation. For example, in your case, you may never be the best looking girl or a guy in the world. Maybe you will never look as pretty as Jennifer Connelly. And that's fine, because if you can have a really good character and perhaps a strong social status, then that's good enough for you to have your dream partner. Make sense? Or in sales, maybe you are really, really bad at B2B sales, right? But if you can be great at JV partnerships, maybe that's all it takes for your employer to give you that promotion. In essence, that's what strategy is all about. You're competing, but you're competing to be unique. And the only way you can win is by finding the right answers. The only way you can find the answers is if you can ask the right questions. Making sense? The only way you can get those questions when you need them is if you train your brain to automate that activity so questions come to surface all the time without you using one of the 3 slots that are available. Okay. Thanks for being with me for the past 1 hour. This video is done. Thanks for your time. And if you benefited from this video, please feel free to share in Twitter and LinkedIn. And if you share in LinkedIn, please send me an invitation as well. I'd love to connect with you. And finally, if you're not happy with your current career, if you're unemployed or underemployed, I strongly suggest you check out my LIG program. Just take a look and see if it is right for you. That's where I share with you some of the advanced and unknown strategies to land yourself interviews and jobs with multinational companies. Now, LIG is not a magic formula. Magic doesn't exist, but it quadruples your chances and significantly shortens your job hunt process. And I also have an interesting promise. So if you take action and implement what you learn at LIG and still don't get results within 30 days, I will personally work with you to make sure you get to where you deserve. Now, that's quite valuable. Very well. Once again, thank you and see you next month.